what it is. The question is, in the face of that, how do I make sure that I am like what this says? All right. Before we jump in, there's one literary device that is used here that we need to be aware of. It is called anthetic parallelism. Now, big word, essentially it means this. The righteous way does something and there's a result, but, that's the key word, but, and, or because of, the wicked do something and they get a different result. So, all of the things we're going to be looking at tonight are framed like that. The righteous way, what they do, the result, but here's what the wicked way does and what the end result of that is. All right, let's start off with verses 1 through 3. Proverbs chapter 12. It says, "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid or a fool. A good man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of evil devices he can." Verse 3 is a strong connection back to Psalm chapter 1, right? This image of if we are planted in God, if we are planted of God, it matters. We are rooted and founded in the gospel that's presented to us. Now, look at verse 1. Let me pray with this one. How do you love to know that you're doing the right thing in God's sight? Joy, right? That would be something that encourages us and uplifts us, that gives us this righteous wisdom. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. It's the same as saying whoever loves correction, who loves to be told, hey, straighten up, loves this. And that's why we're here, or at least part of the reason, because we love God, because we love the book, the wisdom that He's given. And if I'm wrong, I want to be shown the way, right? So that's what the person that loves knowledge or wisdom does. But look at the second half. But. This is that perfect setup of that literary device here. The righteous loves, but the one who hates reproof is. Now, I was always taught growing up, now I'm reading out of the ESV, King James says fool, doesn't it? Or something similar to that. Okay. I was always taught that stupid was a bad word by my mom. Don't call anybody stupid. Brutish. Same thought. It's overbearing, somebody who overwhelms the other person. But the thought is the person that stands there and does something that God doesn't teach, or forces something on a person that God doesn't teach, they're brutish, they're foolish, they're not a bright individual. Here it's a descriptive term. It is saying the person that chooses to set this aside for feelings, desires, wishes, something other than that, they're stepping in a very wrong direction. For you and me, when we look at this, this is the foundation for us. Verse 1, I love God. I love His Word. I love to know that I'm right with it. So I'm not going to be dumb. I'm not going to do foolish things. I'm going to stand on what He teaches. Now, verse 2, a good man obtains favor, but the man of evil devices He condemns. It's plainly put, God is saying, listen, I want to bless you. I want to be the person or the type of God that gives you favor, but you've got a part to play in this. God is not willing that who should perish? Any, right? He wants all of us to be saved. Same back then. The thought is He wants good men. He wants those that are righteous to seek His favor. The righteous man needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing what? It's like it all fits together, right? Now, this is just 2 small verses, but how much have we connected it to past Old Testament, New Testament speakings of Christ? I want us to know that we can use the book of Proverbs to help us face some of our daily battles. When maybe I need correction, remember to love it. When I'm seeking favor, is it God's or is it the world's? Now, look at verse 3 here. We connected this to Psalm chapter 1, the first 3 verses there. It's this image that's given of the person that loves knowledge. They have a firm foundation. Matthew chapter 7, I believe it is, we sing a kid's song about the wise man building his house on the rock, and the foolish, or use this passage, the stupid man does what? Builds his house on the sand. That's the same thought. It is this foundational truth of the gospel, of God. He's there. He is immovable. But I have to love what He offers me. Now, let's look at the next few verses here, 4 through 7. It says, "But an excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are just, the counsel of the wicked are deceitful. The words of the wicked lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright delivers them." Verse 7, "The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand." And honestly, I think verse 7 is kind of the wrapping up of these. It's all this thought of the wicked are just going to live and do and act how they want. Sure, each of us can look at the world around us and see that fact, right? But they're going to fail. There is no lasting foundation in what they are doing and working and building in their life. But our life does have a foundation. Verse 5, "Thoughts of the wicked are just, counsel of the wicked are deceitful." That's what it is for us. Are we seeking the righteousness of God and His wisdom to stand upon it, or whatever the world wants? I've kind of made the joke before that I'm sure if you turned on a religious channel on TV or flipped through your phone, you could find churches that would teach you just about anything you wanted to hear, right? Any doctrine, anything under the sun, there's a group somewhere that's teaching it as truth. But does that make it truth? Just because people believe it? Just because I hold it to be true? Verse 5, "The thoughts of the righteous are just." When I read this, when I study God's Word, it's not to say, okay, what can I find for me? It is, what do I need to fix about myself or change about myself? What's off with me that God finds unacceptable, and how do I conform myself to Him? But so many people in the world have it the opposite way, the righteous versus the wicked. It's almost like this is a battle and a fight that's been going on since time started. These people probably, I'm going to give you a guesstimate, 3,000, 3,500 years from now, before this moment. And yet these little punchy statements, these little proverbs of wisdom and nuggets of truth, they still hit just as hard today, don't they? Now, let's go on to verse 8 and read 8 and 9. It says, "Is a man commended according to his good sense? But one of twisted mind is despised." Now, verse 9, I like this one. I have read it and used it in difficult moments in my life, but it says, "It's better to be lowly and have a servant than to play a great man and lack bread." I love that one. It's better for you to sit at home with what you've got and be content than to go out and look like somebody who's wealthy and essentially be spending all your money or all your time and all your effort on just looking like it. Again, I was scrolling one night and I ran across this, I guess it was a tutorial for influencers on TikTok and social media. And essentially it was this guy breaking down how he spent like $5,000 or $6,000 to fly to Dubai, to rent a yacht, to make himself look like he was rich, and then just post it on his website or post it on his socials just so people would think, look how great he is. Now, I don't mind spending money for a vacation, right? If that's something you want to do, but it was just for show, right? All of it was just, look at me, look at me, look at me. God says it's better for you, it's better for the righteous to sit at home with a servant. Now, the image there is you have your work, your job, your business, your way of livelihood, and you're content with it, versus striving to be rich or wealthy or to become that great person of influence or reputation. I'd rather, maybe this is just me, I'd rather my wife and my kids think I'm a great person rather than somebody I don't know in the world. And I think we as Christians, if we would start focusing on that righteousness, that understanding, maybe we'd start to help some things in our own communities and world. All right, let's go ahead and skip verses 10 and 11 and look at verse 12. Verse 12 says, "Whoever is wicked covets the spoils of the evildoer, but the root of the righteous bears fruit." How much time in your life has been spent on envying what other people have? Man, I wish. If only I had. I think we've all been there, right? He says the person that spends their time envying what the neighbor has or what the person next door doesn't have, that person is going to spend their life in worry and stress. There's not going to be any peace in that person's life. But he says the root of the righteous bears fruit. Again, go back to, what was it, verse 3? Yeah, verse 3, then connect that back to Psalm chapter 1 through 3. It's this image of a foundation that the person's standing on. It's not sand that the moment anything in this world is different than what I understand or expect, that I just fall to pieces. It is that I might not know what's going on, but I'm standing on a foundation that's not going to move. So yeah, I might be in distress, but I'll stand. But the wicked, all they're looking for is the spoils and gather, what can I gain, what can I... But you see, we're not looking at that. It is, I'm looking for that home in heaven. I'm looking for that foundation, Christ. I'm looking for the things that are righteous and godly that will last eternity and not just be gone tomorrow, right? Now, let's move on to the next section. This will be verses 13 down through about verse 25. And this one, he switches from maybe the thoughts, the emotions that we control, the way we think about things, to now our speech and our honesty. So verse number 13 through 16. It says, "An evil man is ensnared by the transgression of his lips, but the righteous escapes from trouble. From the fruit of his mouth a man is satisfied with good, and the work of a man's hand come back to him. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. The vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignore an insult." This section is all talking about how we handle maybe communication or problems when we're back and forth with others or with the world. Verse 16, the last phrase there, that describes all of it. I am not going to let this world do something that causes me to lose my soul. The prudent ignore the insult. I look at it and say, I don't care about this. You're trying to, get some reaction out of me. You're trying to spoil the peace and contentment that God has given me. And that's just not going to happen. Maybe bring in Romans chapter 8, the last 5 or 6 verses of the chapter that talks about how nothing can take us out of the hand of God. Nothing can pull us away from God. Not even Satan, who is that roaring lion walking about seeking whom he may devour. He cannot pull us away from our Savior. But I can choose to step away. Verse 16 again, the vexation or the confusion, the confounding nature of the fool is known at once. Any of you ever met somebody and you just knew he's not too bright? They don't have a grip on what's really going on here. The fool looks at any situation and says, it is what I want it to be. The Christian looks at any situation and says, it is what it is, but I've still got my home in heaven. Kind of similar, but the end result is completely different. Look, if you would now, verse number 17. We'll go down through about verse 20. It says, "Whoever speaks the truth gives honest evidence, but a false witness utters deceit. There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but those who plan peace have joy." Verse 20 is the one I want to sit on for a moment. I know some people who their life seems to be revolving around this phrase of devising evil. They like to mess with people. They like to try to get people to react. So they do whatever they want to get the reaction that they desire. We know people like that. But I want to be the second half of verse 20. I don't want to be a person that pokes and pokes until somebody explodes and gets mad. And I want to be the type of person who maybe not plan peace just because I'm not really a planner, but I want to be the type of person that if you come into my presence, if you are in my home, we're mostly just going to have peace. Now, like I said this morning, there's going to be a few games or moments where I might yell at the kids or might get upset at things, either in jest or for real. But I want my life to mostly be peaceful. Is that what you want? I mean, I think that's part of the reason we're here, right? We recognize that this world isn't peaceful, that there's so much going on, and we want that place of safety and refuge in Christ. Deceit, verse 20, is in the heart of those who devise evil. That's the world. But you and me, we need to be those that are planning peace. those that have a mind to bring contentment and joy to the world around me. Now, let's look at verses 21 and 22 now. It says, "No ill befalls the righteous, but the wicked are filled with trouble. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are His delight." Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but there have been about 7 or 8 different verses or phrases in this that have talked about lying and deceit and how the person that tells the lie, they're going to be trapped in it. Now, those of you with any experience with the world know that doesn't always happen quickly, does it? Some people who lie get away with it for a long time. But eventually those things are caught up. Eventually that person is going to have to pay the price for it. I would even argue that they are paying the price for it, for having to try to keep all of the lies straight in their head, right? All of the confusion and stress that goes from, okay, I told this person that, and that one this, and okay, so which story, and how do I pull the threads, and that doesn't sound like peace to me, does it you? If I live in righteousness and truth, and I always try to do what's right and godly, then I don't have to keep things straight. I just have to know what I'm supposed to be doing. But throughout this, it's been this, the liar is going to be caught. But verse 22, lying lips are an abomination, but those who act faithful are His delight. I would probably include this in the phrase that I usually use. When I get to heaven or when I stand before Christ, I want to hear that phrase, "Well done, good and faithful servant." But I think this one's probably close second, or I'd like it as well. This thought of God being able to look at me and find delight in my actions. Easiest way for us to understand this is, parents, have you ever looked at your kids and they've done something silly and you just get this flutter of joy? He's not listening, so I've got this real funny video of Isaac, if any of y'all want to laugh. I've got it, I'll turn it on and watch it if I'm having a down moment. He's just being silly. That's what we have through Christ. That's what I want to be to God. I want to be that thing. I don't have anything of value to offer Him. He doesn't need anything from me. But maybe I can just do what He wants me to here so He can find something to find some joy, delight, and love in this world. And if all of us are doing that, I don't see how it couldn't make the world around us better. Wisdom, righteousness versus the wickedness and deceit of the world. I need to make sure that my heart is what it needs to be. I need to make sure that what I'm saying and how I approach the world is truthful and honest. Not just because it helps me, but because it helps the world see a better way to do things. It's not that just trying to get ahead. It's not that trying to be better than everybody else, but it's that peace and joy that we find just in normal life, right? I don't have to have $1 million yacht. I don't have to have a huge house or, I need this. I need the peace that passes understanding, right? I need the joy and contentment that comes from knowing my soul is safe versus that money in the bank, maybe. Now again, it does talk about in this with relation to the liar, though, that they'll be found out, that they'll have to pay the price for it, and sometimes that happens in this life, but sometimes it doesn't happen until they meet their Maker. We need to know that God is in control, that even if we don't see the downfall of the person that's lying, justice will be paid. All right, next section here, verse 23 and 25. So we're going to skip 24 for a second. All right, it says, "The prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of the fool proclaims folly. Then verse 25, anxiety in a man's heart weigh him down, but a good word makes him glad. The wise person, going with the thoughts of the chapter, the person that's keeping control of themselves, how they react, the person that has that foundation that's rooted, that person has the mindset that I'm going to gather all the knowledge that I can. I am going to fill myself up with anything and everything that I can that's related to this. Think about the effort that went in to your schooling when you sat down for, math or science or whatever the subject was. You had to study, you had to read, you had to listen to the teacher, you had to pass a test, get a grade, maybe do some extra homework or something if the grade wasn't good enough. The prudent man doesn't wait for the test, but they gather as much as they can beforehand. There's a passage in, I forget where it is, but it's in Proverbs, but it talks about the ants and how they gather for winter. How it's this slow process of just one bite at a time, really, one seed, one piece. That's us. Our daily walk is just gathering these little bits that sustain us. They're all here, will always be sustained, but we have to go out and work. We have to look for it and strive to be what this teaches us to be. Now, go back to verse number 25. It says, anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down. Any of you understand that? I would imagine most of us don't even need an explanation of that, right? That moment at night when we wake up and we think, what did I forget to do? Or there's this bill, there's this thing that's coming up. How do I do this? Or something with family. Again, we all know this. So the anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down. That's the world. But a good word makes him glad. Now, this ties into what I was talking about this morning, the idea of encouragement and upliftment, the idea of us being part of the foundation for everybody else. And that is, the more encouragement, the more good words a person has in their life, the more likely, or maybe the more chances they have to be obedient to this. I want to be prudent, and I hope you guys do too. I want to be righteous. I want to be wise. I want to be a lover of knowledge. Not because I want anything to boast on. Not because I want to stand up here and say, hey, you guys, look at how much I know. Right? That's not it. It's because I'm going to stand before my Maker one day. And I'm going to have to give an account of what I did, what I said, how I talked to you guys, the sermons that I preached. And the same is true for you. The life that you lived, the example that you gave, wise, righteous, or wicked, the path that we walked. But the heart of the fool proclaims folly. I think there's enough of those kind of people in the world, don't you? The fool that proclaims his folly, the person that's just living for the actions and the rewards in this life. So let's focus on, again, that better way, that righteous path. All right. Now, if you've noticed, we've skipped several verses through this study. I want us to go back and look at those now, because these are, I guess, how we put all of these thoughts into practice. So let's go up and look at verses 10 and 11. It says, whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. Now, the first part of verse 10 is talking about caring for their livestock, their livelihood, the animals that lived around them. The righteous looks at the oxen, the donkey, the sheep, the goats, and they help them if they're in need. Remember Jesus, when he was kind of trying to disarm the Pharisees, said, which one of you, if you saw your donkey in a ditch, wouldn't get it out? Take care of the things that are yours. But the second half of that says, even the mercy of the wicked is cruel. I think there's a lot of examples of that in the world, where the world says, hey, we're being merciful, we're being kind, but it's really just a masked cruelty. You and I, we live, again, not to belittle, not to gain here on this life, but we live so that the world can be a little bit softer. Now, verse 11, whoever works the land will have plenty of bread. That echoes a thought of Christ in the New Testament, doesn't it? But the second half, he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. The person whose pursuits are only on things that don't matter. Game I like to play with my boys. What if I spent the next 2 weeks getting good enough to beat them at it? I think it'd take less than that, but day after day after day, that's all I did. I got really good at that game. I got my fingers, I knew where the buttons were, maybe I could even close my eyes, and that's neat, right? But what good is it? We need to be thinking about what good do our pursuits serve God? How are the things and the ways that we're living and acting, how is God glorified by them? Now again, I think we should be able to pursue the things that you enjoy, the hobbies that you have. Absolutely, go for those. But if they start to lead me or others away from God, then I've got to throw those things aside. My whole life, our whole life should be, God, thank you. How can I give back to you in some way? Now, skip down, if you would, to verse number 24. It says, the hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor. Every time I read this, my mind jumps to the prodigal son. That prodigal son left his father's house with what? His inheritance. A large sum of money. He went out, spent it on riotous living, right? Frivolity. All of the finer things in life. But where'd he end up? In a pig pen, working for his food, looking at that slop bucket thinking, man, that looks good. I think that's the forced labor idea. I'm going to be working for things that I don't even really care about. Back in my father's house, though, there's bread to spare as long as I work. I cannot think of a time in my life where we have been without food for too long. Now, some of them have almost starved to death, myself included at times. But we've had food. And I would guess most of us would probably be able to say that, right? Again, maybe some moments where there's some hardship, or maybe they were stretching some meals, right? But God is taking care of us if we're serving Him. Now, skip down, if you would, verses 26 through the end of the chapter. He says, one who is righteous is a guide to his neighbor. Now, I think that's kind of the wrap-up of all of this. That's the point of why we live differently, so that I could hopefully get my neighbor or the person that sees me to change his ways. The one who is righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Whoever is slothful will not roast his game, but the diligent man will get precious wealth. This passage has always kind of confused me, or it seemed out of place, but after years of study, I guess, it fits. You go to the grocery store, you buy your cold goods, your frozen items, you bring them inside the house, you leave them sitting on the counter. How good are they, or how long will they stay good that way? I guess it depends on your standards of food, but not too long, right? The idea is, here is this foolish person, this wicked, this slothful, who they've gathered, they've got the stuff, but that's good enough, and I'll just drop it. I can't read this portion without thinking all of the half-finished projects I have around my house. I think that's a trap that's easy to fall into, don't you? Looking at the world, looking at what we're doing and our efforts, and just saying, I've got it. The righteous, though, tries to be a good steward of what we have. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be perfect. There's going to be things that fall apart and slip through the cracks, but we have a mind that says, God, I'm going to do the best with what you've given to me. Go to the parable of the talents. I'm not going to dig it and hide it away, but I'm going to use and add to what I've gotten, or what you've given me. Verse number 28. In the path of the righteous is life, and in its path there is no death. Now, this verse is kind of different to me than the rest of them, because the other ones have been given this, the righteous versus the wicked. But in this one, it's like the wicked are completely forgotten. It's only us that's left. In the path of righteousness is life. Where we walk, where this guides us, is life and godliness and truth. It's this peace and joy that only comes from a life that is built on that foundation that's going to last. And in its path is no death. So you and I, we have this thought, okay, here's my path. Maybe go to Jesus when he talks about that straight and narrow way, right? You and I, we have this path to walk. The way of righteousness, the way of wisdom. But all around it, on each side, is the way of wickedness. And it is so easy to fall off that path of righteousness. It's so easy for us just to kind of just step back into the world and get in rhythm with it, right? Remember this last verse. Let it echo in your mind and mine when we're faced with these temptations, when life puts issues in front of us where we might not want to act like we should. In the path of righteousness is life. If you will stay with Christ, if you will not walk out of that hand of God, you have life eternal. That is a promise. That is an assurity to you. Not from my backing, but from the God who created everything. He said, I'm there. But you have to choose not to leave me. Then that thought, the pathway is no death. You think about Jesus hanging on the cross. The pain he suffered, the immense weight and burden that he went through in that time. And yet all he had to do was say, okay, I'm done. Too much pain, too much anguish. I don't like being separated from my Father. Angels come, I'm leaving. And that's probably what I would have done. The mindset of, I don't want to hurt. I don't want to endure what this world has to throw at me. But I do want to be right with God. So like Jesus in that garden when he prayed, Father, if there be any way, let this cup pass from me. Not my will be done, but yours. That's wisdom. Tonight, I hope you will desire and have a mind that seeks the righteous wisdom of God. Not one that just says, okay, where are the parts that tell me what I want? Where's the sections that give me, license to do what I want to do? But what discipline, what correction, back to verse 1, what changes do I need to make in my life in order to stand on that firm foundation, to be rooted and founded next to that river of life? Again, I don't know your situation. I don't know what difficulties you're facing, but God can help you. If you need the help, prayers of this congregation in any way, would you come forward together as we stand and as we sing?